Have you ever been in a position where you're leading, but you don't have the title, where you're building influence without official authority, where people are looking to you for direction, but you're not actually in charge? Last week, we talked about David the shepherd, the one who defeated Goliath by leading authentically. But today, we're going to see what happened next. And it wasn't what you'd expect. David didn't get promoted. He didn't get the corner office. Instead, he spent years running for his life, hiding in caves and leading a ragtag group of followers in the wilderness. And it's in that wilderness where David learned one of the most important leadership lessons of all: how to build a team when you have nothing to offer but your character. Hey friends, thanks for joining me today on Leading with Bill. I'm Bill Martin, your personal leadership coach, and this is where biblical wisdom can transform your leadership and life. Let me set the scene. After David kills Goliath, he becomes a national hero. People are singing songs about him. Even King Saul brings him into the palace. Everything looks like it's going David's way. But then jealousy takes over. Saul becomes threatened by David's success. And in 1 Samuel chapter 19, Saul tries to kill him. But David runs, goes from the palace to the wilderness, from a celebrated warrior to being a fugitive, and from having everything to literally having nothing. And here's what's really remarkable. In the wilderness, where David has no position, no power, and no resources, that people start following him. 1 Samuel chapter 22 tells us that everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, everyone who was discontented gathered around him. About 400 men, not the elite and not the qualified, the broken, struggling, and the overlooked. And David became their leader. David could have been bitter. He could have complained about his circumstances. He could have said, I defeated Goliath. I should be in the palace, not hiding in caves. But he didn't. Instead, he focused on the people in front of him. He protected them. He provided for them. He led them with integrity even when no one was watching. He shared their hardships, built trust through his action, not his title. And over time, something incredible happened. That group of 400 distressed and discontented men, they became David's mighty warriors. Some of the greatest fighters in Israel's history. Loyal, courageous, and committed. Why? Because David didn't lead them from a position of power. He led them through character, through service, through shared adversity. He built a team in the wilderness. So what does this teach us about leadership when we don't have the title? Well, I want to share 3 key insights. The first is influence is built through character, not position. David had no official authority in the wilderness. He couldn't promote anyone. He couldn't give raises. Couldn't offer job security. All he had was his character. And that was enough. Here's what I've seen. People don't follow titles. Follow people they trust. They follow leaders who demonstrate integrity, who care about them and show up with consistency even when it's hard. If you're leading without a title right now, don't wait for the promotion to start leading. Build influence through who you are, not what your business card says. And second is great teams are often forged in adversity. David's mighty warriors, they weren't trained in the palace. They were trained in the wilderness. They weren't formed during the good times. They were formed during the hard times. Adversity has a way of revealing character and building loyalty. When you lead people through challenges, when you struggle alongside them, when you protect them, when you stay committed even when things are tough, you create bonds that just can't be broken. Some of the best teams I've seen, weren't built during success. They were built during crisis because that's when people see who you really are. And third, leadership is about developing others, not advancing yourself. David could have used those 400 men to stage a coup. He could have focused on getting back to the palace, on reclaiming what he thought he deserved, but he didn't. He focused on them. He developed them. He turned broken, struggling people into mighty warriors. Here's the paradox. By focusing on developing others, instead of advancing himself, David actually prepared himself to be king. The wilderness wasn't wasted time. It was leadership school. So how do we apply this when we're leading without a title? I want to give you a 3-step framework, and we're going to call it a wilderness leadership. I know it's very creative here, but wilderness leadership. So step 1 is lead with service and not status. So ask yourself, how can I serve the people around me right now, regardless of my position? Maybe you're not the manager yet, but you can mentor someone who's struggling. Maybe you don't have the authority over the project, but you can take initiative and solve problems. Maybe you're not in charge, but you can be the person who lifts others up and makes the team better. David didn't wait for a crown to start serving. He served in the wilderness, and that's what built his influence. Leadership isn't about the title you have. It's about the value that you bring. Step 2 is build trust through consistency. So now ask, am I showing up consistently, especially when it's hard? David's men followed him because he was consistent. He didn't abandon them when things got tough. He didn't take shortcuts with his integrity, but he showed up day by day in the wilderness. Trust isn't built in the big moments, built in the small, consistent actions over time. Are you reliable? Are you honest? People know they can count on you. If you want to lead without a title, be the person people can trust, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's costly. And step 3, invest in others' growth. Finally, ask, who am I developing right now? David took broken people and turned them into mighty warriors. He invested in their growth. He saw potential in people that others overlooked. You don't need a title to develop others. You can encourage someone. You can share what you've learned. You can create opportunities for others to grow. You can be the leader who sees potential and calls it out. When you focus on making others better, you become the kind of leader that people want to follow, title or no title. All right, here's your challenge for this week. Consider doing 2 things. First, identify one person you can serve this week without any expectation of recognition or reward. Maybe it's a colleague who needs help. Maybe it's someone on your team who's struggling. Find one way to lead through service and not status. Second, think about someone that you can invest in, someone whose potential you see, even if others don't. Reach out to them this week. Encourage them. Offer to mentor them. Share something that you've learned. Be the leader who develops others. Remember, you don't need a title to do this. You just need to be willing to lead in the wilderness. Here's what I want you to remember. David's time in the wilderness wasn't a detour. It was preparation. It was where he learned to lead without power, to build influence through character, and to develop others instead of advancing himself. And when he finally became king, he was ready, not because of what he learned in the palace, but because of what he learned in the wilderness. If you're in the wilderness season right now, if you're leading without the title, building influence without authority, and waiting for your opportunity, don't waste it. This is your leadership school. This is where you're being formed. Lead with character, build through consistency, and invest in others. Watch what God does with your faithfulness. Friends, thanks for joining today on Leading with Bill. Remember, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and we'll see you next time.